Welcome back to Sports on Tap, to our Ohio high school football coverage. Week 5 recaps. And we went through the Greater Cleveland Conference and the Southwestern Conference, and it's time now to move into the Suburban League. And we'll start off in the National Division with Ed Dick, who has some pretty good games over there in the National Division.
Excited to hear about this. He teased it very well.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, we'll get right into it. I mean, 2 teams entered Week 5 undefeated. 1 walked out the same way. We'll start with the Stowe Monroe Falls Bulldogs, 4-0 overall, 1-0 in the conference, traveling to Wadsworth's Art Wright Memorial Stadium to take on the 4-0 and 1-0 Grizzlies, who are looking for their first 5-0 start since the 2011 season. Wadsworth struck quickly with a 1-yard touchdown run by running back Brock Snowball. Stowe quickly answered with a 67-yard touchdown run by running back Terrian Ray. Snowball punched in another 1-yard touchdown run, only to be countered with a 1-yard touchdown run by Stowe quarterback Corian Rice. 14-14 was the score with 6:19 left in the first half, and then the Grizzlies simply imposed their will on the Bulldogs. Wadsworth quarterback Joey Bachman put his stamp on the game, completing a 42-yard touchdown pass to wide receiver Christian Zalay, then calling his own number for rushing touchdowns of 30 and 19 yards. The Grizzlies were up 35-14 entering the fourth quarter, and they did not look back en route to a 41-28 victory. Bachman completed 13 of 17 passes for 158 yards and a touchdown. He also rushed 26 times for 206 yards and 3 more touchdowns. Christian Zalay caught 6 passes for 71 yards and a touch. Brock Snowball, 10 rushes, 78 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Stowe, they didn't do too bad themselves. Corian Rice, quarterback, completed 12 of 24 passing. He had 176 yards and an interception. He did rush for 18 times for 48 yards and a touchdown. Running back Terrian Ray, he had 19 carries for 173 yards and 3 touchdowns. Then he also caught 3 passes for 79 yards. Lots of offense going on in this game, but the Wadsworth defense stepped up when they needed to. Wadsworth improves to 5-0 overall, 2-0 in the conference. The Grizzlies will travel to Cuyahoga Falls in Week 6. Stowe Monroe Falls, they dropped to 4-1 overall, 1-1 in the conference. They are going to play host to Macedonia Nordonia.
Pretty good game out there. That was pretty much your marquee game in that division was Stowe versus Wadsworth. And like you said, a lot of offense, but then again, defense also ended up winning that game. I mean, with a guy like Corian Rice and the offensive talent in Wadsworth, you were wondering which defense was going to come to play, and it seems like Wadsworth was able to make enough defensive plays to stop a pretty impressive offense in Stowe. So, congratulations to them. But again, doesn't really, obviously you don't want to lose, but it doesn't really hurt Stowe's chances when it comes to playoffs. I mean, obviously they've built up quite a resume, and their schedule going forward seems to be, obviously it'll be something to look forward to. They still they got to take care of business, but they're not out of the driver's seat just yet.
No, I mean, like you said, I mean, if nothing else, I mean, Wadsworth has announced their arrival as top contenders in the National Division, but you still have a couple other schools involved there. One we'll get to here in a little bit. Next, we're going to travel to Brecksville, Broadview Heights, where the Bees, 2-2 overall, 0-1 in the conference, welcome the winless Cuyahoga Falls Black Tigers. The Bees held the Black Tigers scoreless for the first 3 quarters and amassed a 37-0 lead. Freshman quarterback Joe Labus connected with senior wide receiver Sam Wigloos for a 27-yard touchdown pass to start the scoring. Then he found Jordan Shaheen for a 19-yard touchdown to put the Bees up 16-0. Running back Alec Buckley scored in a 17-yard run to give the Bees a 22-0 lead at the half. Labus and Shaheen combined for a 54-yard touchdown, and then Buckley ran for another 4-yard touchdown in the second half to wrap up the scoring for the Bees. The Black Tigers did get on the board with a 50-yard pick six by defensive back Ben Kinker to account for the final score. Brecksville, Broadview Heights 37, Cuyahoga Falls 7. Brecksville's Joe Labus threw 3 touchdown passes to lead the Bees to a 3-2 overall record, 1-1 in the conference. They will travel to Twinsburg in Week 6. Cuyahoga Falls will face a formidable task to get their first win when they host undefeated Wadsworth.
Ooh, boy.
Yeah, it's not looking too good for the Bat Tigers. Not gonna lie. All right, the other team that is expected to make some waves here in the Suburban League National Division. The 3-1 overall, 1-1 in the conference, or 1-0 in the conference. Hudson Explorers hosted the winless Macedonia Nordonia Knights. Hudson's defense was able to limit the the Knights' offensive triumvirate of quarterback Robbie Levick, running back Ty Evans, and wide receiver Donnie Wisniak. Hudson quarterback Cole Play had himself a huge game. He started the scoring by finding wide receiver Greg Maley for a 55-yard touchdown pass. Play then scored on a 1-yard touchdown run and found wide receiver Brandon Lau for a 32-yard touchdown and a 21-0 lead. After Knights quarterback Robbie Levick rushed for a 7-yard touchdown, Play hit Maley for another touchdown, covering 17 yards. He finished up with a 6-yard touchdown run en route to a 41-14 victory for the Hudson Explorers. Colt Play finished completing 11 of 15 passes for 189 yards and 3 touchdowns. He also rushed 8 times for 89 yards and 2 more touchdowns. Wide receiver Greg Maley caught 6 passes for 114 yards and 2 touchdowns. Nordonia's Robbie Levick finished completing 16 of 32 passing for 149 yards and 3 interceptions. Like we said before, the Hudson defense did a good job containing running back Ty Evans. He only had 15 carries for 45 yards. Donnie Wisniak wasn't much of a factor as we're used to seeing him in either. The Explorers improved to 4-1 overall. They are 2-0 in the conference. They're going to travel to we'll talk about that game here in a little bit. The Knights will remain winless, and they will host Stowe Munroe Falls. The final game was played on Saturday night as the 2-2, 0-1 North Royalton Bears traveled to 3-1, 1-0 Twinsburg. The Tigers jumped out to a quick 14-0 lead behind a 15-yard touchdown run from running back Cameron McLean and a 76-yard touchdown pass from quarterback Adam Van Demater to wide receiver Christian Edgerson. The Bears countered with 21 straight points behind sophomore quarterback Joey Marusic's legs and arms. Marusic sandwiched 2 touchdown runs with a 25-yard touchdown pass to wide receiver Tyler Nurek. Twinsburg quickly tied it up with a 90-yard kickoff return for a touchdown by running back Isaiah Savant. Undaunted, Marusic found wide receiver Miles Sternad for touchdown passes of 12 and 31 yards in what turned out to be an insurmountable 35-21 lead on their way to a 41-28 victory over the Twinsburg Tigers. Oof. Sophomore quarterback Joey Marusic threw 3 touchdowns, and he rushed for 2 more from North Royalton. Miles Sternad caught 2 of those touchdowns. Cameron McLean rushed 18 times for 97 yards and 2 touchdowns for the Tigers. Wide receiver Christian Edgerson caught 4 passes for 101 yards and a touchdown. Both teams are now 3-2 overall and 1-1 in the conference. Twinsburg has a really quick turnaround. They're going to host Brecksville Broadview Heights on Thursday, which is weird having they just played Saturday night, and they're going to have a really quick turnaround to play on Thursday. We'll talk about North Royalton here in a little bit. The Week 5 Player of the Week, I actually have co-players of the week. The first Player of the Week will be North Royalton sophomore quarterback Joey Marusic. He passed for 3 rushing touchdowns and rushed for 2 more. I can't ignore what Joey Bachman did against Stowe. You can argue that Joey Bachman can pretty much be the Player of the Week every single week. I'm trying to spread the love around here a little bit, but in a marquee game, he showed up this time. Wadsworth senior quarterback Joey Bachman completed 13 of 17 passing for 158 yards and a touchdown. He also rushed 26 times for 206 yards and 3 touchdowns. So those 2 quarterbacks from North Royalton and Wadsworth, Joey Marusic and Joey Bachman, those are my Week 5 Players of the Week for the Suburban League National Division.
Yes, sir.
And impressive.
At the end of the day here, we're looking at one undefeated team left in the conference, that being Wadsworth, which is something if you saw them play last year, they started out a little slow, and they picked up some momentum near the end of the season, but they had a lot of guys coming back. You had Joey Boppin coming back for his senior year. You had Mitchell Blackburn as his receiver. Christian Zalace has really stepped up to really help the Grizzlies out, and that Grizzly defense has holding Stowe Monroe Falls to 28 points is a pretty big feat, unless you're stolen, in which case you held them to even less, but you still end up losing. So right now we're looking at a 3-team race: Wadsworth, Hudson, Stowe Monroe Falls. Those are your big three right there.
Wow.
Brecksville, Broadview Heights, and Twinsburg are sitting in North Royalton. They're all 1-1 in the conference, and there's a lot that can happen here. I mean, North Royalton beating Twinsburg was a little bit of an upset in my mind. That's something I didn't really see.
Yeah, that's impressive, I think, because North Royalton, just a young team, but like you said, their sophomore quarterback Marusik there, he's shown that consistently he can put up pretty big numbers and lead that team. And for Wadsworth, I think I'm impressed that they had a few down years or whatever, but a key win against Stowe, I think, puts you on the map in that division. I mean, you're for real if you can beat a really impressive team like Stowe. We saw them up front defensively. Stowe's a really good team, and Wadsworth putting up big numbers and getting a huge win. They're going to be tough to beat, and they've been consistently good this year. So. Really taking over there.
Well, let's not forget also, I mean, beating Twinsburg, and I agree with you, that's an upset because the way Twinsburg was putting up points these last couple weeks, I really thought that, North Royalton's defense was not going to be able to handle that particular offensive scheme, but it wasn't a stout shutdown defensive effort, but they did just enough to win that game, and their offense, led by Marusik, was able to capitalize. It doesn't take a lot for a defense doesn't have to shut up an opponent out. They just have to stop them on some key series, and it sounds like that's what happened in that game. Was North Royalton's defense was a bend, don't break, but maybe they also found a way to win a couple matchups and stop that Twinsburg offense from getting going, and that was the difference in that particular game.
The big thing too with the Bears was they were down 14-0 early, and they were able, they bowed their neck and they said, you know what, we'll put 21 right up against you guys, and that's exactly what they did. So they showed some a lot of resiliency there. Getting down to an opponent that it could easily snowball on with the talent that they have on offense, between Trey Radford and Van de Mater, Edgerson, Cameron McLean. You have some very, very good athletes there, and North Royalton was able to overcome that. So I think that's going to give them a lot of confidence, especially when we talk about their upcoming game here in a little bit.
Yeah, and when it comes to Wadsworth, I think even the Wadsworth coaching staff would say, that's great. That was a big win over Brecksville, but I'm sorry, Stowe, right? Stowe, sorry. But they need to beat a Hudson team. To really say, okay, we are the because right now Hudson's holding serve on this division, and they won it last year, and they are the team really to beat. I think in that division, I know they have one loss, but in the conference they both have equal records, and their one loss was to a Division I team that's racking up wins at this point in time. So it's not as if it was they lost to a Division III out of the blue team. They lost to a team that's probably going to be in the top half of the Division I playoffs come the end of the year. So I feel like Hudson may be getting overlooked with all the limelight that's going on, but Hudson's still got a very good defense and a very good offense that knows how to put up points when they need to, and they also know how to stop people from putting up points. So I'm looking forward to seeing when those two teams match up. I think it's week 7 or 8, I believe.
Week 10.
Week 10.
Is Wadsworth Hudson.
So obviously, if both these teams are, undefeated in the conference coming down, that's your de facto championship game. And, who knows what happens then. So definitely looking forward to next week, and we'll talk more about a particular game that we've all decided would be a good game. So
excellent. All right, well, that wraps it up for Week 5 of the Suburban League National Division. I will start getting more into playoff talk probably Week 6, maybe Week 7, as things start to become a little bit more clear. But I will kick it over to my cohort, my compadre, my colleague. He is the ruler of all that is the Suburban League American Division, Sean Duffy, to take us through Week 5.
Oh, thanks. I get a drum roll? That's so nice. It's basically, hey,
Very nice.
drum roll to see what I screw up this week. All right, well, first off, we'll start off with Aurora.
No Seamus.
No Seamus, but I, you know.
You guys will never let that go.
No, we
away.
won't. We're not going to.
It's unfortunate.
All right. Well, I'm going to start off in the Suburban League American Division Week 5 with Aurora hosting 1 and 3 Aurora.
Already.
There it is. You know what? Get it out of the way.
Drum roll, please.
1 and 3 Aurora hosting 1 and 3 Kent Roosevelt in Week 5. Aurora's quarterback Colin McNamara led a rout of the visiting Rough Riders of Kent Roosevelt. He finished with 9 carries for 93 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 passing touchdown. Aurora running back Brent Henderson added an additional 89 yards of rushing and 2 touchdowns. Aurora's defense, who has given up some leads and has lost some leads late in the game, had a fantastic night, basically stifling anything Kent Roosevelt threw at them. Kent Roosevelt, unfortunately, falls to 1-4 and 0-2 in the conference. They will travel to take on Talmadge in Week 6, while Aurora, after a confidence-boosting win against Kent Roosevelt, will travel to take on Barberton in Week 6. Now, speaking of Barberton, they took their high-powered offense on the road to Copley in Week 5. And, guys, this is a revenge game in Barberton's eyes because last year Copley came into their stadium and beat them and pretty much set them on a path to not even in the discussion at one point for the division. This year was all different. Barberton quarterback Zane Reese threw for 3 touchdown passes, 2 to Garrett Turnbull, and Reese went 16 for 26 for 65 yards, and he also had 1 rushing touchdown. Barberton running back Jeff Parker had 2 touchdowns of his own, while Key Thompson finished off in the fourth quarter with a touchdown run for the Magics. Copley's running back Blake Traylor turned in a solid performance with 102 yards rushing and 1 touchdown, but it wasn't enough as Barberton's defense was able to hold them to just 20 points on the game. Now, Barberton, obviously the emotional win to getting the revenge game against Copley, they have a tough test right now going up hosting Aurora in Week 6. And again, it's going to be very interesting to see how Aurora comes in and plays because you got to remember they're coming off a pretty good win against Kent Roosevelt, feeling pretty good about themselves. But Barberton is a steamroller right now. And again, we talked about it about the GCC in Menor. We talked about it with Midview. We talked about it with Berea Mid-Park. We talked about it with Barberton is a team that if they get going early, they do not stop. They have a tendency to really rack up points and rack up yards. And it's not that they're trying to. It's just their natural progression and their natural understanding of their offense and how to win is just there. And it's very interesting to see. I'm very interested to see how this game goes because this really will set the tone for how the rest of the Suburban League American Division kind of finishes out the year, I think, next week against Aurora. Copley falls to 2-3 on the season and 0-1 in conference play, while Barberton improves to 5-0 and 2-0. Copley will look to rebound as they travel to take on Revere in Week 6. Moving on to another undefeated team looking to stay that way in Week 5, we have Highland traveling to Revere. And this was Highland's game from the beginning. Quarterback Matthew Ernest went 10 for 18, 241 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He also rushed for 2 touchdowns as well. The guy was in the end zone all night. Highland running back and all-around stud Jake Rogers rushed for 124 yards, again as a running back and not his natural position, and a touchdown. He also threw a 41-yard touchdown pass to Evan Castellanos, and he had an interception on the night as well. So Jake Rogers did what Jake Rogers has been doing all year. On all sides of the ball, he made a difference. And again, as Ed said about the quarterback from Wadsworth, he's a consistent player every week. He could be a player of the week every week. Nate Kolanowski had a 15-yard touchdown for the Revere Minutemen, but it just wasn't enough. Highland jumped all over Revere early, and they never looked back. Highland will travel to take on Green in a Week 6 non-conference matchup this week, and Revere will host Copley in Week 6. So those are going to be two teams, Copley and Revere, looking to kind of bounce back against one another. Should be an interesting game for all you fans out there. My last game is Talmadge hosting Dover in a non-conference matchup, and this was actually a pretty back-and-forth game. Every time one team scored, the other team responded, and it kind of, you know how we say in basketball, whoever had the ball last pretty much wins the game? Same thing here. Talmadge was able to tie the game up late in the fourth quarter and then lead a game-winning drive that culminated in a touchdown, and were able to convert the extra point. And at that point in time, Talmadge again improves to 4-1 and 0-1 in the season, while Dover falls to 2-2. My player of the week in Week 5 is going to be Highland quarterback Matthew Ernest. As much as Jake Rogers was all over the field, Matthew Ernest took it upon himself to just be in the end zone all night. So I'm going to give him my Chocolate Milk Award for the week. And guys, I got some really good matchups in Week 6. My particular one, obviously, has got to be that Aurora Barberton game. I mean, those are two teams that last year were fought each other pretty hard in that game. That was at Aurora. Aurora ended up pulling it out late. I think we're going to see. I personally am hoping for a good game, but I have a lot of faith in that Barberton offense. They got a lot of experienced kids. They got a lot of talent on that side of the ball. And again, it just seems like these past 5 weeks, anything they dial up seems to be working. It's going to be a test of that Aurora defense, who has been beleaguered this year. They've given up. They've been in games. They've kept their team in games, but given up late leads. They've been, hamstrung by some injuries. And does Aurora's offense have enough firepower and enough consistency to go shot for shot if this turns into a shootout? And that's the question: is how this game progresses, whether it's a shootout or a defensive battle.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, Aurora's going to have their hands full with Barberton, and then Medina Highland later. Back to back. So you're playing 2 undefeated teams back to back. It doesn't really get any easier. I mean, they're going to have the last 3 games at home against Revere, Copley, and Mifflin, but this is where they need to make their mark. If they want to make a push for the playoffs in Division III, Region 9, they need to get at least one of these wins. Obviously, winning both would give them the edge in the conference, and also put them in a very, very good spot to make the playoffs. But this is you don't want to call it a must win, but it's about as close to that as you could possibly make it, given all everything that's going to be at hand for the remainder of the season.
Yeah, and the one thing I'm also impressed with is Talmadge. I mean, look, they lost a close one to Aurora last week, lost by a point, and then responded by again a tight one against a Dover team that came to play. But Talmadge is 4-1 right now, and they have an opportunity to improve their standing in the playoff. I mean, if you look at that division, that Division 3, Region 12 or Region 9? Region 9, they're sitting in 4th right now.
Talmadge?
Yes. Third. I'm sorry,
third.
Yeah, third. Whereas Aurora's not even in the top.
Aurora's 12th right now,
yeah.
And the top 11 are either 4-1 or 5-0.
Right. I mean,
this is a really huge game for Aurora. If they can get a win here, I mean, points wise, they can make a nice little jump, because really their first 3 games were against Solon 4-1, Euclid 4-1, and Twinsburg 3-2. Their last, I mean, Talmadge was a huge win though.
Yeah.
That 4-1, the Talmadge team up there, big time win. And getting some points.
And like I said, I mean, a team like Talmadge is benefiting, I think, from a pretty good schedule they have. I mean, they're 4-1. They're playing well. They're not getting blown out of the stadium like they kind of were last year. The running back there, Ty Shannon, is having a great season, and I think they could be a team that maybe plays that spoiler route or spoiler role, I should say, going forward, because obviously your Highlands and your Barbertons are really the teams to beat, I think, right now. Aurora's there, and I think Talmadge is there more so than Copley. So I think if Aurora and Talmadge have the opportunity to play spoiler and also benefit their position. Talmadge, again, they have a team against Kent Roosevelt who's not playing well right now, so they could bolster one there before they get in maybe to the meat of their schedule. So I look at Talmadge as a team that could be on the radar come week 7 and 8, and maybe positioning themselves nicely in that Region 9. Again, you're right. Aurora, I'll go as far as to say this is a must-win. They got to win this game, because I don't see them losing to Barberton and then turning around and beating Highland. I mean, those two teams are a wrecking ball right now. They put up points and they play good defense. Mm-hmm. Aurora has to have their A game 2 weeks in a row, and we haven't seen that. Aurora's been, again,
they're going to have it the rest of the year. They have a Highland team right after Barberton that's 5-0, and good Revere, Copley, and a Mifflin team that's 4-1. So we'll see what happens. They got to win.
It's going to be fun, and like I said, I'm very interested to see how that game plays out, because it has a potential to be a back and forth, a shootout type game, or also just a grind it out, run the ball game. I just, like I said, I'm very, very excited to see that game.
Well, great job, guys, on the Suburban League. And we're only through week 5 here. 5 more weeks left in the regular season to see what happens. We'll give you all the points according to Joe Itel. Just go to joeitel.com for unofficial, they say,
Of course, unofficial,
but
quote unquote.
Pretty much it's dead on.
Pretty sure
Let's
the
be
Plain
honest.
Dealer uses the Joe Itel standings.
Absolutely. Go to Sports on Tap Podcast at gmail.com if you want to email us. Go to sportsontappodcast.com for our podcast. We'll step away, take a short break. When we come back, we'll recap our game of the week, which was Buckeye versus Columbia, and tell you what games we'll be at this coming week. All coming up. We're Sports on Tap.